Peace. This is Waz for Waz Words Media. What a horrible day in New York sports. So, let's start with the hangover of another horrible NBA draft by the New York Knicks. I just did a video yesterday discussing how the draft is the tone setter for every team. The season starts on draft night. Good teams become good, dynasties start to form, and bad teams remain bad, all on draft night. The New York Knicks had the 11th pick. In my video yesterday, I stated the unsung heroes, one of the most underappreciated pieces of every franchise, is the scouting department. The scouting department, their sole responsibility is to watch for the next guy, or somebody that can help your team. So you're supposed to be on top of college basketball globally, overseas. You're supposed to be on top of the D League, or G League they call it these days. You're supposed to be on top of these things. So, because the old media is always going to put out a consensus top 10 of guys that, these are the guys that are going to go top 10, the top guys in the draft. Your job in the scouting department is to find the guys that nobody's talking about, so that this way you have one up on all the other teams, and you can select these guys with an 11th pick. And an 11th pick, you can definitely get a sleeper gem if you did your homework. But the New York Knicks have one of the laziest, worst scouting departments in all of sports. And this is not an overstatement. This is an actual fact, because we have been through 20 plus drafts, and the New York Knicks continue to miss out on people that go off and become all-stars, NBA champions, etc., etc. So this lazy scouting department and lazy and horrible front office, they take the 11th pick and they trade it back to get more picks, and we'll discuss why. But you have guys like Kawhi Leonard, who were drafted in the second round. You got guys like Draymond Green, who was drafted in the second round. You have guys like Chris Middleton, who was drafted in the second round. Remember little Isaiah Thomas? He was the last pick in the whole NBA draft, the second round, and he was like a candidate for MVP in the league. You have the Golden State Warriors, who drafted Jordan Poole in the second round, or close to the second round, the 28th pick. The Knicks had practically 17 picks before that, and they couldn't even pick somebody. That shows laziness. That shows you didn't do your homework. That shows you probably weren't even watching March Madness, which is maddening, no pun intended, because they are giving you a stage full of young talent on display for the world to see. How do you not have at least 11 names where if 10 get picked, you have one more that you can pick? That is lazy front office work. They did not do their job. This is why that whole front office has to go. And the reason they try to put together a package is for Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson, although he can shoot the perimeter shot, he shoots it at a clip of like 37%, which is good. But here's the problem with Jalen Brunson. It's a familiar story I've heard before. Jalen Brunson had a super mediocre regular season. He did nothing the regular season. Then he exploded in the playoffs. And on a larger stage, he displayed, great perimeter shooting, an ability to score. So now he immediately became somebody that the Knicks want. So much so that they went and hired his father, who used to play for the Knicks, Rick Brunson, and they hired him to be a part of the Knicks staff as a way to also try to lure in Jalen Brunson. The Knicks thinking they have one up on people. It's so horrible, this franchise. But anyway, Jalen Brunson, all he did was have a good playoffs. He did nothing throughout the regular season. And I've heard this story before. Back in 96, the New York Knicks could have signed Tim Hardaway. Instead, they saw Chris Childs play the greatest basketball of his life for the last 20, 30 games of the season. Not even a whole season. And they were so enamored with just those 20, 30 games that they went and signed Chris Childs to a big contract. Childs gets signed, does nothing for the Knicks. It didn't stop there. The junkyard dog, Jerome Williams. The Knicks go and sign the, junkyard dog played for Seattle with Ray Allen. Didn't do anything the regular season. Had a monster postseason. I think he was averaging something like 10 and 17 or 17 and 10, something like that. He was a monster on the boards and putbacks, and he had a great postseason. Knicks go and sign him based off the postseason. Give him a big contract. Does absolutely nothing. So sounds familiar? This is what I see happening. Another Chris Childs. Another junkyard dog story. This is going to be a guy who had a really good playoffs, but there's no track record of him being good or elite. To get that elite contract, you're going to spend max money on a guy who had a few good games and nothing more than that. And that is a typical New York Knicks move. So you don't scout good enough to pick somebody at 11. You don't have enough confidence in your choice. So you trade that pick only to get a guy who did good in the playoffs, but no track record of being a very good player prior to that. So what the Knicks need is a pass-first type point guard. And Jalen Brunson is not that. He averages 3 assists a game. How are you going to develop RJ Barrett, who just turned 22? He's not even in his prime yet. You got to get a pass-first point guard and build around RJ Barrett. But no, the Knicks are not doing that. I would rather the Knicks get Tyus Jones from the Memphis Grizzlies, because Jones was actually RJ Barrett's point guard in Duke. And they have chemistry. And he was a pass-first point guard when they played for Duke together. So I would rather get Jones from the Grizzlies, man. Get Jones. You won't have to pay $25 million, and you probably could give him 17, 18, and use that other 7, 8 mil to get somebody else. Add depth. But the Knicks will continue to be the Knicks until this front office is wiped out. Next, Aaron Judge, which should be a good story, a feel-good story, because Aaron Judge had a monster game last night where he bashed 2 homers, another multiple home run game, and a walk-off home run to beat the cheating Astros. So now, Aaron Judge is going to arbitration this morning with the New York Yankees. So they're going to sit down, discuss figures, because in the beginning of the season, Brian Cashman did not guarantee Aaron Judge a lucrative contract worth his skill set. And Aaron Judge said, you know what? He did the right thing, the professional thing. Right before first pitch, he sat with reporters and he said, you know what? The season's about to start. I'm solely focused on the season. I'm not going to answer anything. I'm not even going to talk to you about contracts. Don't ask me about it. We'll discuss this once the season's done. With that said, Aaron Judge went on a rampage. Aaron Judge, what he wanted to do was show and prove to the Yankees and Brian Cashman, oh yeah? You wanna short me a few $1,000,000? Like I'm not worth it? Watch this. The man is on pace to having one of the most historic baseball seasons of all time. He's on his way. He might crush the home run record. This guy, at this pace, I was thinking 60 home runs. At this pace, this guy might be at 66, 68, maybe 70 home runs at this pace. He is having a historic season, but arbitration can get very sloppy, especially with the fact that Aaron Judge wants to attend the arbitration. And that's what I don't like. And that's what makes it a very ugly situation, because during arbitration, both sides sit down to discuss figures, what the players should get and whatnot. And the arbiters are there listening to both sides. The Yankees' argument is going to be that Aaron Judge is unhealthy. He's not healthy all the time. He's always injured, so on and so forth. They also may say things that, that are within their round circle when they have their meetings that we're not privy to. So when these things come up in front and Judge is going to be sitting there in the presence of that, that's something that you don't really want for your best player, to hear negative things about him in his presence. So that may make him feel like, yo, y'all look at me like that? That's how y'all feel about me? So, it's an ugly situation. I've always been a Brian Cashman fan, still am, even though these past couple years people have been calling for Cashman, his job. They've been wanting Cashman out. I've been somebody that even up until last year, when you listen to sports radio and such, people left and right calling for Cashman's job. He's got to go. Get him out of here. But I was one of the few defenders of his, because I was like, yo, he's been doing these quiet sleeper good moves. Last year, he goes and snatches up Jameson Taillon. And it's not the sexy move that most Yankee fans are used to. But it was a really good. Taillon ended up being one of the better pitchers for the Yankees last year. He ended up having a good stretch last year. And you see Taillon was having a good stretch, even though he had a bad game last night. But you can see that Taillon has been one of their more consistent pitchers. He went and got Nasty Nestor last year. Nestor Cortez came, was a pickup from his last year. You also had a problem with the batting lineup. It was too much right-handed batters. There was no lefty-righties. So he went and got Joey Gallo and Anthony Rizzo. Anthony Rizzo is proven to be, he's one of those great clubhouse guys that every clubhouse needs. And he started the season on fire, leading the league in homers up until, the honorable Aaron Judge took over that spot and hasn't looked back since. But he's done sleeper good moves, man. Donaldson was he comes with his baggage, but that's a good move also to bring him in. So he's been doing sleeper good moves. And I feel, although he hasn't had any of the big splashes Yankee fans are used to, he has made these little good adjustments to the team that we are sitting here today as the best team in baseball. And it's all due to those minor moves that he's made and not looking for the big splash, not looking for the back page of the newspaper. So, yeah, I just, with all that being said, I hope that the arbitration goes well because Cashman should have. And I've always defended Cashman, but he should have not short Aaron Judge for a few $1 million. You shouldn't short him, and it sucks that we get to this point, but hopefully after this, give the man at least a few more million, keep him happy because he's a West Coast guy. And there's a news flash for you New Yorkers and New York franchises. I don't know if you've been noticing, but nobody wants to come to play in New York anymore. Nobody wants to come to New York anymore. This ain't Derek Jeter. This ain't a guy that you feel like you could go back and forth with him in negotiations and he's going to stay because he has Yankee pride and he has to, he wants to end his career here. No, those days are over. Nobody cares about New York no more. I'm sorry, New Yorkers. I know it's a sensitive topic for y'all, but, nobody cares about New York. Look all over every sport. Nobody wants to come to New York. No basketball players want to come to New York. Football players don't want to come to New York. Baseball players don't want to come to New York. Before New York was the place to be, because before social media, this was the place, this was the biggest market in the country. In fact, the biggest market in the world. But since the advent of social media and people being able to promote themselves with just a handheld device just like this, and social media plugins like TikTok and IG and YouTube and Instagram, you don't need New York's media machine anymore. You can be a big media success out in Arizona or out in Georgia, which a lot of people flocking to, or out in Florida, or you can be anywhere now because all you need is a camera, a platform, following, and who needs New York? Plus, with the New York media, the horrible weather, these are all things that people tell other players. The players speak to one another, and they're like, yo, you don't want to deal with that every day. Damn if you do, damn if you don't. The media is killing you. Newspapers writing about you. These teams, these players hear stuff like that. So, Aaron Judge is a West Coast guy. He'll be quick to go back to California. So the Knicks, the Yankees got to play this one right. Give the man his money, man. Give the man his money. Give him a lucrative contract to keep him happy. He's the face of our franchise. And, he's on his way to an MVP. Should be 2 because cheating on Tuve. But in any event, and now to some lighter news, for me at least. The Brooklyn Nets are in turmoil. Kyrie Irving has officially requested a trade. He no longer is interested in playing with the Brooklyn Nets. And that will make Cupcake Kevin, a.k.a. Kevin Durant, the softest player in NBA history. That man will now be running for the hills. Because he has alpha skills, but he does not have an alpha heart. Meaning he has the skills of a number 1 player on any team. But he doesn't have the heart and the leadership to be a number 1 and a true, face of a franchise, because he needs help all the time. This is why he hitched a ride. All he was a passenger on the Golden State vehicle to those 2 championships. He was a passenger. They showed him proof because they won without him, and they won a couple, and then they won just now without him again. So they won a couple championships without him. They didn't need him. But Kyrie leaving he wants to go to either Miami, the Knicks, LA, both LA teams. So he's got a list of teams he wants to go to. So if Kyrie Irving leaves, this is going to be a trickling effect. And watch Kevin Durant ask for a trade. He will be out of there because KD doesn't want to be the sole guy responsible for any bad play or, a losing season or whatever the case may be. So, yeah, that's all the bad news going on in New York, in the New York sports scene. How you feel about, if these are one of your teams that was mentioned, how do you feel about what's going down? Leave a comment. Let's build. Peace.